It's the easiest way to stay up to date on all things local while on the go. Read it on your smartphone or tablet. Download now by searching Bakersfield Californian in the Apple, Google, and Amazon app stores.
Welcome back to BVarsity Live. Zach Ewing, Trevor Horn with you in the Dignity Health Studio. The Dignity Health Studio.
Dignity. Ooh, a split screen.
It's a hard word to say. Ooh, I like it.
it.
I like it.
Oh.
Nope, wrong way. How are you?
How are you?
Okay, so I said we're going to look back at 2014. We're actually going to do that in the last segment, so I apologize. It's still January. It's the first half of January 15th. So
yeah, it's only the second show of the new year.
Yeah, only midway through January.
Yeah.
We're allowed to look back at 2014. Plus, it's your 6-month anniversary at the Californians coming up shortly. So that means it's a good time for you to look back to. Trevor's feeling nostalgic.
Aww.
But first, we're going to look at some.
As Zach would say, "Daw."
The other two winter sports. We talked soccer. We'll do a little wrestling. Maybe talk about the Doc B real quick,
Sure.
Trevor. It was a rough weekend for locals.
It
Now
was.
that's a darn good dynamite tournament up there. The Doc B, one of the 2 or 3 best prep tournaments in the country. So you're going to be challenged. The local guys, the top ones, were challenged. None of them made the final. None of them even made the semifinals, which is really surprising. But it's kind of like Andy Varner told you before the tournament. We got to find out where we're at, and they found out.
And I think they did, but the guy that I think really stepped away locally out of that tournament is Jared Snyder out of Frontier, the heavyweight. Went in, lost in the quarterfinals to the guy from Colorado, and then went into the third place match and beat him handedly, and then took away third place at 285 from the Doc B. So I think the one guy out of the area, the Drillers finished up, I think, 7th overall. They had 3 guys placed: J.J. Figueroa, Devontae Demison, who was the 4th seed at 120, finished in 4th, and Carlos Herrera all placed. So I think it's still overall a good day for the Drillers. Obviously, you want somebody in the semifinals. You want to be there. But, I mean, you look at that 126 bracket, that 132 bracket, that 120. I mean, up and down, you had so many. 4 of the 5 returning state qualifiers in the state were in that tournament. I think the numbers were out of the 1 and 2 seeds, out of the 14 weight classes, 9 of them, either the 1 and 2 seed were or in them. So obviously, they seeded that tournament properly, and it kind of came out as such.
Sure. And yeah, we knew coming in that it was going to be rough for some of those teams. Up next, wrestling-wise, Bakersfield and Frontier wrestle, I want to say next Wednesday night, and that is typically your Southwest Yosemite League Championship. Foothill will wrestle. I think they already wrestled North and beat them, and then they'll have East, which may be the SEYL Championship. The SYL, probably a little bit more up for grabs. It's a newer league.
And then starting tomorrow, the Kern County Invitational.
Kern County Invitational this weekend.
At Centennial.
And the Battle for the Belt down at the Temecula Valley, which is another one of the state's biggest tournaments. And then we're a couple of weeks away from the doubleheader BHS Clovis West and CSUB Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, an outdoor doubleheader, which will be a lot of fun. And then after that, there's sort of a break, and you get into the postseason starting February the 13th and 14th with league tournaments, and then you get into the big tournaments after that. So wrestling season also, just like soccer, is coming up on the finish line here before we know it, another month or so. As for basketball now, the league season hasn't even started in basketball, and once
Other
it
than
does,
the SSL, obviously.
the SSL, starts a couple of weeks earlier. But once it does, things will start going pretty quickly. But we're still sort of at that halfway point in the basketball season. Trevor, you did some rankings this week. We're going to take a look at those right now. We'll start. These are the boys basketball top 20 in the section. Now, these were from the beginning of the week. So anything that's happened this week might have affected those, and that includes Cesar Chavez losing to Bakersfield Christian. So Cesar Chavez might drop a little bit, but they have some good wins.
Yeah, and then the same thing with Central. You got to figure that they're going to move up after
West
beating
High.
West after a 23-0 run in the third quarter. West was up at halftime, and then Central just kind of and then Central just kind of put it on them and beat West, which you'll see higher up in the rankings. They're number 12. But this is two Porterville teams there. Central, which Kern County has seen a lot of because they played in the Garces tournament. They lost to Chavez. Part of the reason why Chavez is one spot ahead of them at that point. And then Tehachapi might have, it's one of those teams where it's a lot like Stockdale, where they're they have two absolutely fantastic players in Isaiah Johnson and Johnny Saavedra. Johnson playing against Rosemont the other night scored 44 points. That's almost unheard of at the high school level.
Yeah, and you mentioned Stockdale. They're number 15, right above Tehachapi, and it's kind of
Go ahead and move, Chris.
It's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde type situation, but what those teams really need is the supporting cast to step up. And you see Clovis North at 11. Again, something that happened this week, Stockdale beat Clovis North, so they'll be moving up, and that's something that's important for this SWYL and seeding for all the D1 teams down in Bakersfield. And Stockdale did lose to Bullard, so Bullard will probably be moving up as well. We mentioned West lost. They'll probably be moving down. But the thing about Stockdale in that Clovis North match is they got some supporting cast.
Yeah.
They got some scoring from another source, and I'm having trouble remembering who it was at this moment. But besides Tucker Einigenberg and Robbie Purdy, who score in bunches regularly, Blake Andrews is who it was, scored 16 points for Stockdale in a home victory over Clovis North. And that will be having the Mustangs on the rise. So as we move into the top 10.
That was a road game.
That was a road game.
That
up
was
in
in
Clovis.
Clovis.
Liberty, number 8.
We would have been there if it was here.
Liberty also won at Clovis North. So that's two big road wins for the SWYL. Liberty did lose to Emmanuel last night, who we're about to see. Centennial lost a close game to Emmanuel. They are 12-6. No, they're more than that now because they did win the Selma tournament. So Centennial looking like they could be the best team in Bakersfield.
And Centennial get a good look on Saturday. They'll play in the Saturday showcase at Edison.
Yeah, that'll be an important game as well. Keep an eye out for Ridgeview at number 10. When Sheldon Croney gets acclimated back to playing basketball, that team might be on the rise, and they'll be battling with West and
That is by far
SYL.
the top to bottom, the most athletic team in Kern County. The only issue is, like you said, getting all those guys acclimated back to their positions and seeing if they can really put together a full,
Absolutely.
yeah, 32
Absolutely.
minutes.
We talk about Centennial facing Edison here at number 4 in the Super Saturday Showcase, which is at Central. And then Edison after that on Monday in another showcase at College of the Sequoias in Visalia, Edison will take on Emmanuel. And Emmanuel, we already mentioned, has the wins over Liberty and Centennial. Clovis East has a big win over Stockdale, and they also beat Edison. That's why they're at number 3. Mission Oak has a win over Hanford, which we saw at number 6. But they're all right now kind of chasing Clovis West, the number 1 team in the section. They haven't played a lot of section teams, but what did you see in Clovis West's resume that you liked?
I like the fact that if they did have a loss in their non-league schedule, it was against a good team and they were never blown out. And I think Clovis West just top to bottom is a very solid team that, as we see them play more central section teams, I think they're going to show their might over the rest of the group.
And Emmanuel, a Division 4 team, yes, but they've beat Liberty, they've beat Centennial. Again, they're going to take on Edison on Monday.
That's one
a team,
of those.
Colin Slater, a high major D1 prospect as a junior, and they've got a couple other guys who will get D1 looks on that team. That's not a D4 team.
Well, and that's the one team that I'm really interested to see how they get seeded. If they're able, you got to figure they're going to run the table in D4.
Right. It'd be a shock if they didn't in the Central section.
Yeah, it'll be a very huge shock. You look at teams like Capital Christian, who went to the NorCal state title game, D5 in the Sac Joaquin section, but they moved them up to the open division. What are they going to do with Emmanuel? Emmanuel does not have the body of work that's Capital Christian had going into that one.
I would be surprised if Emmanuel got sent to open.
And I think that's the one team in the Central section that may be able to put in a good shot at state this year.
Yeah, I think there are some good D4 teams. Andy
Emmanuel,
Bogard was tweeting about that last night. Bishop Montgomery. I mean, there's a lot of Southern Cal teams, if they get left in D4, that Emmanuel will have to deal with, but they're certainly going to have a shot at a nice run. On the girls' side now, girls' basketball rankings, here's 16 through 20. You see Tehachapi in at number 20. The girls' rankings, after that top 10, it seems like it filters down quite a bit, the level of play. It's harder to pick this 10 through 20, isn't it?
1 through 10 was pretty easy for me to list them out, but once I got to about 15 to 20, it was like, there are some teams that are sitting on the cusp that go, well, yeah, they could probably play with them, but yeah, it's a little tough mud in here. I think you're going to see the top half of it really being, the showcase teams.
Yeah, you're a little more concrete with that. That's just how it worked this particular year. 11 through 15 on the girls' side. You see Independence at number 11. They've still only lost 1 game, and that was to Ridgeview. Now, Ridgeview got after them pretty good, but Independence, I believe, is 13-1 going into SYL play, but they're going to have to face Ridgeview in SYL play, and we saw at number 20 Tehachapi.
And
I
then,
see some smaller schools here, some mountain schools, Sierra and Yosemite.
Yep. And you see those are teams where it just, you only need 2, 3, 4 good players on a basketball team to really
absolutely. And those are two good girls programs.
Yeah, they are.
Now let's move into that top 10 that you say is kind of that concrete, teams that we know are good. It's kind of a shock, those who have followed Central Section girls basketball. Hanford, yes, they're very good. Not as good as they usually are. They're usually far and away one of the top 1 or 2 teams in the section. They're number 10 this year. They do play Ridgeview tomorrow night.
And I'll be there covering the game, so that'll be a good 9-10 matchup tomorrow night at Ridgeview.
And again, Ridgeview has the big win over Independence. They've only lost once, and that was to Centennial.
Who we see in the top 5.
Yeah,
Let's go ahead and move over to that, Chris.
And here's your top 5. Centennial had, right before they took out Ridgeview, they went up to Fresno and beat Edison, so they're clearly ahead of the Tigers. Centennial had a couple of losses. Early in the year, they battled some injuries, and that's why we have them behind Clovis North. And then I think your clear top 2 right now, and you could flip a coin between these two. You have Clovis West 2 and Garces 1. What split that hair for you in Garces' favor?
I think the fact that Garces does have just the 1 loss, and that's to, I think, the 9th team in the state ranked Oaks Christian. And
that was only the second game of the year as well.
Yeah, second game of the year, and I think that this team is not just the CJ West show. CJ will be on the show next week. We'll talk to her a little bit more, and hopefully Coach Dennison, too.
We're going to try to drag Todd Dennison in here as well.
Yeah, but that's a team that, in a 2-game stretch, outscored their opponents in the first half 92-3. It's one of those, and then they beat 6th-ranked Clovis handedly at home on Monday night.
33 points, yeah. This is a special team, no doubt about it. But Clovis West, also a very special team. They've already played tournaments in Las Vegas and Arizona. They're going to be really, really good. And if it is indeed Clovis West and Garces at Selland Arena on March the 7th, that's going to be a doozy of a girls' basketball game. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, you take wrestling. I'm going to go watch that.
That will be a lot of fun if that's what happens on March the 7th. But, and the other thing I'll say is, Garces, and like we said, CJ West, we're going to have her on BVarsity Live next Thursday. A lot of sports so far moving Garces into the SWL hasn't worked out. Obviously, the football team had a lot of struggles. They had, the winless season, or the 1-9 season, the winless season in league, and it hasn't worked out in some other sports. Girls basketball is one sport where they belong in that league, and they are the favorites in that league.
And speaking of that, we will have a Sunday centerpiece a Q&A that I had with the new Garces head football coach, AJ Gass.
It's either going to be this Sunday or next Sunday. That is coming in the Californian. So we want to take our last break. We'll be back. We want to talk 2014. Trevor and I each came up with our top 5 stories, top 5 athletes in Kern County High School sports for 2014. We'll have that right after this.